The following program is produced by Londonderry residents. The views and opinions expressed are not necessarily the views and opinions of the LACTV staff or its volunteers, and should not be considered an endorsement by CTV20 or its staff and volunteers.
Hello, Londonderry, and welcome to another episode of Concord Conversations. It's been a while since we met with you. I hope you all had a great holiday season here in town. It's been a wonderful holiday, I think, and just enough snow for Christmas to give us a dusting and a little flavor. And of course, we've had a storm since to add to the wintry mix and highlight and remind us that we are still in the winter season, and it is New Hampshire. But this morning, again, this show is about talking about local, county, and state issues. I'm one of your hosts, Representative Wayne McDonald from here in Londonderry. I'm delighted to have with me this morning Representative Lisa Mazur from the town of Goffstown. I have the privilege, or we both have the privilege, of leading the Health and Human Services and Elderly Affairs Committee in the New Hampshire House of Representatives. I have the privilege of being chairman, and Lisa, I'm delighted to have her join me as the vice chairman of the committee. And this morning we just want to talk about health and human services. It's, our committee deals with a lot of important legislation. We were hoping to have around 35 bills this year. We have 45 bills this year. And it's, some committees have much fewer bills. Public Works has only got 8. They did only have 6, and when I told them they had 8, they said, "Oh my goodness, we have 8." And I said, "We can give you some of ours." But what we do, all of the bills before the legislature are critically important. But in Health and Human Services, we have it's not only the number, but also the complexity. We're dealing with human needs, human concerns. Health and Human Services is the biggest state agency. It spends over half the state budget. It has 1/3 of the state workforce, and there's a lot of very delicate issues that come before our committee and that are represented in this legislation. And it's not just the technical side of it, it's not just the financial side of it, it's the human and the emotional side of it we have to deal with. And Lisa, I know you've got at least a couple of bills that are coming before our committee, and those are going to attract some major attention and major discussion. Do you want to talk about those a little bit?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. This is exciting. I'm in my second term in the legislature and second term on HHSEA. And yes, this term I actually have 2 bills coming through our committee. I have other bills that I've sponsored, but they're going through other committees. But 2 big ones and one of them will prohibit puberty blockers and hormones for minors. And these bills are just wait until you're 18 before you make life-altering decisions that you can't come back from. That's what that is. And the more that America and other countries are doing research on these kinds of things, the more they are realizing that they need to put the brakes on these these issues, because they are issues that affect our children, and just pause and study more, because what they're finding in the studies that they're doing now is alarming. And so that several other countries have kind of kiboshed that for minors for now. And so America's kind of behind on all of that, but we're starting to see more and more states kind of follow suit. So that's what this bill is. It's protecting children. It's not a hate anybody or anti anything. It's just protecting children and hoping they wait until 18 before they want to do that. And then last term we did pass a bill. It was HB 619 that actually prohibited bottom surgery for minors in the area of transitioning. And this term, I have a bill that will prohibit top surgery for minors, with exceptions. So there's some health exceptions and things in there. So it's not just this umbrella prohibition. It's another wait until 18 bill, though. Both of them are. It's just wait until that age. And there are mindsets and things change throughout the years. I actually met several detransitioners who went through that process as a teen, and now they're in their 20s, and everything's different. I know a young lady that she lived as a male for a while, tried, and when she hit 20, changed her mind, but she had all of the surgeries done. So she's sterile. She's no longer she can't have children, but the cool part is she just got married, so that's exciting. Okay. And she did move to another state, but she's living this now beautiful life. But she has still major regrets because the things that she did to her body she can't turn back on. So, but she found someone that.
And I think it's important to point out, as you've indicated, this is not an anti-transgender bill. It's simply one that keeps that option open, but puts it into a situation where you need to be 18 and have settled into life a bit before you make that important decision.
Yeah, and to put it into perspective, it is a bipartisan issue. There are members of both parties voted on that 619 last year, and a poll was taken in New Hampshire, and over 70% of people in New Hampshire think that it's the right thing to do to have kids wait until a certain age, until they're technically adults. Because think of the things that we don't let kids do. We don't let them go to tanning salons. We don't let them get tattoos and other things. Why? Because these are things that could damage them in the future. So that's a protection of them, and this is the same. So those are two big ones.
And again, we all remember, those of us who were there, you and I were certainly there that day, and we remember Representative Jonah Wheeler from Peterborough. He actually spoke in favor of House Bill 619.
Yes, he did.
And Jonah is a very nice young man, very intelligent young man. He's a Democrat from the town of Peterborough. Mm-hmm. I would certainly say it's fair, and I say this in a very respectful way. He's a liberal, on most issues, but on this particular issue, he supported House Bill 619. Mm-hmm. So when Lisa says that it's a bipartisan issue, it does have bipartisan support.
Yep.
And again, it's certainly not a simple issue. Again, it gets back to the complexity and the emotional side of the many bills that we deal with. Mm-hmm. Last week, we started our public hearings. On Wednesday, we had 2 full days of public hearings. Wednesday was affectionately referred to as Cannabis Day. We had 5 bills relating to cannabis. They dealt with the expansion of therapeutic use. They dealt with alternative treatment centers, which would dispense cannabis for therapeutic purposes, being for profit. They dealt with veterans being exempted from having to pay fees for therapeutic cannabis. Those bills have not yet been voted out of our committee. I know we're working on our executive session, mm-hmm. and our committee is scheduled for this week. Some of them may be addressed at that time, but we also have another full day of hearings coming up on Wednesday. Mm-hmm. And again, there are things in the legislature called early bills. Those are bills that not only have to be considered by our committee or another committee, but they have to go on to a second committee also, all within the scope of the legislative session, and before we adjourn in June. And so a number of bills that we'll be taking up, and Lisa and I tend to meet with the staff on Tuesday mornings to set the schedule for the following week, and we're going to be talking about the early bills in particular because those have got to get done sooner and be given priority to meet the schedule. But in the past, over the course of time, and I haven't had a chance to look at all the new bills, Lisa, but I don't think there's anything dealing with organ donor transplants this year.
Nope, I didn't see anything like that.
We had a number of them last session, and again, that's an important issue. There was legislation talking about giving priority. If a person was donating a kidney, for example, from New Hampshire, there was an effort to try to require preference be given to a New Hampshire person, which is technically illegal under federal law. And I believe that one either was sent to interim study, or I think it was an expedient to legislate with the permission of the prime sponsor. Do you see anything else there that catches our eye? I know there's also another issue we deal a lot with is various commissions to study telehealth or renew commissions. And the challenge of commissions, they say a meeting is no substitute for progress. Too often study committees and commissions are created to study things. Some of them fulfill that mission very, very well. Some of them do not. Some of them meet regularly. Some of them do not. And, we've got well over 300 commissions now in the state, and an effort's been made to try to scale those back. And moving forward, an even greater effort is being made to avoid just passing new ones. And that's one of the things, I think it's on for Wednesday, right? Some of the commission bills to evaluate those and decide if they have merit and should continue. They're all created with a very noble purpose and a very legitimate purpose, but again, some of them are more successful than others, and some of them, it gets to a point where people get on multiple commissions, they don't have the time to serve, and again, the work just doesn't get done, and the mission of the whole group isn't fulfilled.
And we did actually exec our first bill.
We did.
Just a few days ago, and we have this new rule now where we can do that. We have a little bit more flexibility with when, and an executive session means that we put it through for a committee vote. So it can either go to second committee or to the House floor, whatever it is. But this one was relative to the use of nasal spray to treat anaphylaxis. And it was really great because a young man was there to testify, and this saved his life. And his mom was there with him too. So it's really awesome when you have people testify like that with real life situations. And this was just a no-brainer for our committee. It passed on consent, and it was also great. We purposely, what we call exec it, voted on it the same day so that he could be there to be part of that process, so he can witness the result of what a great job he did testifying, and others too. And this is a real thing, because a lot of people don't know how to deal with needles, and so when someone goes into shock like that, this is a much easier way to treat someone, and it's not as intimidating as other things. So I think this was a great bill, and it was awesome.
Lisa made a comment that it went on consent. That means when an overwhelming majority of the committee, or in this case, unanimous vote of those present. We have 18 members on our committee, 16 were present. Vote was 16-0 to approve this legislation and recommend it to the full House for approval. And when it has that kind of overwhelming support, it goes on something called the consent calendar, as opposed to the regular calendar where there has to be an individual vote, oftentimes debate by those for and against. Consent calendars where bills with unanimous or near unanimous support can go. There's only one vote taken on the entire group of those bills, and it really moves things along better. It's more efficient. And again, it's something, every bill has had its hearing at that point. It's been discussed. Everybody's had a chance to testify. It's been well noticed. And, it's a very efficient way to handle it when it has that kind of overwhelming support. A couple of other bills that are coming up during the course of this year deal with immunization, and we expect some lively discussion on those. One would exempt people for religious purposes. And I can't remember what the other one does, Lisa.
There's some childhood immunization requirements. And also some vaccine ones. So there's,
exactly.
I mean, we've just come out of a heavy few years, so it's understood that there's going to be some legislation that comes about as a result of all of that.
And one thing I've consistently done, and I'll let Lisa address her position on this too, is I totally respect the whole vaccine argument. And I also totally respect the value of vaccines, no matter what illness they're intended for. But I also totally oppose mandates. I've consistently voted against mandates. I think it's an individual decision for any adult, and obviously an adult on behalf of their children, to make the decision whether they should take a vaccine, whether it's for COVID or anything else. Obviously, some things like polio, I strongly support, and I can't imagine why anybody would oppose it. But again, that's a separate conversation. But totally against mandates, but totally support anyone wanting to take any vaccine that they think might be of value. I don't know if you want to comment on that, Lisa, because I know it's a hot button issue.
It is, and you know, that's actually one of the reasons I ran for office. Is there was a lot of overreach, in my opinion, during the COVID era, I call it, and so some of that stuff just needs to be addressed, so that we don't go through that kind of overreach again. Like you said, the mandate part of it is just, people should have freedom to choose. And when they didn't, a lot of people were harmed by it, and so, you know, they have a right to speak out about that, and we're hearing about it now. I forgot to mention another bill that I have that's coming through our committee. I had it here. HB 701 the title of it is Relative to a Healthcare Patient's Right to Try Certain Emergency Healthcare Treatment Options. And we did pass a similar bill last term, but this one is, I'll call it like a beefier bill, where it does allow patients who, and this is not an assisted suicide bill. It's nothing like that. This is people who are given, terminal diagnoses and want alternative treatments and are willing to risk alternative treatments to try and save their lives, without, certain healthcare providers being sued and things not necessarily approved by the FDA, but they just want to try everything they can to save their lives. So I'm working with an organization on that bill, and they asked me to sponsor it, and I was glad to, because actually my dad went through all of that, and I would have wanted that for my dad. So that's why I actually got behind it, because I'm from Canada, so my dad was in Canada when this all happened, and he just didn't have the right or anything to do any of that there. Everything looked different there, so I wished that he had more freedom to do stuff like that.
Sure.
So I'm kind of passionate about that one too.
We some of the other bills we have deal with healthcare record keeping, and of course we know the whole issue of privacy in healthcare is a very critical issue in these times, and so we've got a number of bills along that line, some sponsored by members of our committee. So we'll see how those shake out as the hearings proceed.
Also, I'll maybe switch gears a little bit
Sure.
too. We just heard our Governor Ayotte say that some of, mention her priorities, which I know, we're, as a House, we're trying to push through the parental rights and the sanctuary cities bills. So she seems pretty passionate about those, and so those will be coming, I think, to the floor in the next next few weeks.
Yes.
So take a look out for those, and it's good to hear how different priorities align with hers and what she's looking to do, and how she's trying to limit spending to try and bring down some taxes, because we're all in the same boat.
Again, in my discussions with the Speaker and others, we have some challenging bills here. We have, every session has its challenges. But I would much rather be on Health and Human Services than Finance this term.
Yes, oh my goodness, yes.
We're looking at $500 million of cuts in the state budget.
Yeah.
For various reasons.
Yeah.
And and I've been told by various folks, be aware that because Health and Human Services is the biggest agency, spends the most money, gets the most money, it's also going to probably experience the biggest cuts. And again, we won't be addressing those in our committee, but certainly some of our early bills that may end up going to Finance, and I think that's usually where they're headed, are going to be strongly considered, and that's certainly going to be impacting them, some of this legislation that the department may want moving forward.
Yeah.
And again, I don't envy the task of the Finance Committee as it seeks to meet this challenge.
Right.
One of the things, one of the top things that legislature must do, a lot of legislation that comes before us, we can kill, we can pass, but one thing we have to do is pass a state budget every 2 years, and it must be balanced. These things are required under the Constitution. And so the projection of revenues, the projection of expenditures, trying to figure out how everything is going to be met, the needs of the people of New Hampshire. Last term, we had the unenviable task of, along with the Senate, of dealing with the issue of Medicaid expansion, part of the whole Obamacare program and the expansion of health care for the people of this state and the entire country. And we did renew it for a 7-year period. It could be brought up sooner, but hopefully we don't have to tackle that one until 2030. So
Right.
It's not on the radar screen, at least for this year, and
Right.
hopefully not next. It originated in the Senate last term. But yes, speaking of various other bills coming up, there's going to be the Right to Work bill, and I've already gotten some emails on that.
Yes.
That's a Labor Committee bill. We've also got, there's always a number of Second Amendment bills that come up in various forms. There's a bunch of, there are abortion bills that are in front of judiciary right now that I know they've heard, along with some, I believe the legalization of cannabis was in front of judiciary the other day.
Okay.
I know they had some cannabis bills the other day, and I don't know if it was for recreational purposes or a different aspect of the therapeutic
I think
use of
that one was
cannabis.
recreational. We've had all the therapeutic ones
Right.
in ours, and those passed our committee last year, I believe.
I believe they did.
Yeah.
I believe they did.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens.
One of the amazing things of the political process, the governmental process, we have a House and we have a Senate, and when we have a time during the legislative period, a legislative session called crossover, when House bills go to the Senate if they've been passed by the House, Senate bills if they've been passed by the Senate come to the House, and when if any disagreements occur about how the bill has been shaped, they have to go to a committee of conference if they're going to survive. And sometimes you don't recognize the bill when it comes back to you, and you have to decide whether you want a committee of conference or if it's too far gone.
It's been amended so much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and for the most part, we pass good stuff. But every once in a while, there's a legitimate disagreement between the two bodies, and even sometimes when we agree, the governor doesn't agree with us, and that's the whole process. That's why the system is designed as it is, to have as many eyes examine these important issues and hopefully yield the best result.
Yeah, checks and balances.
Exactly, separation of powers.
Yes.
So again, Lisa and I are honored to do this work along with, I think it's 22 other committees now. We just created a couple of new committees in the House.
Split up education.
Right, education now deals, instead of funding and policy in one committee, they used to get over 100 bills. We complain about our 45, they used to get over 100. I don't know how they did it, and this was every year.
Yeah.
And now they've divided it up, so one committee will deal with education funding, which, as we all know, is a huge issue, the Claremont decision and so forth, and then the other one will deal with policy. In addition to that, we created a committee on housing because we recognize that housing is a critically important issue, especially in southern New Hampshire where most people live and work. And if we want to continue to meet our workforce demands, attract industry to move here, grow our economy, those employees need a place to live. So that's a new committee. It was created as a select committee in the last legislative session by, I believe, the Speaker or the Rules. I don't think it went to the Rules Committee. I think the Speaker just created it as a select committee, and it worked out well, and now it is a permanent standing committee of the House, and they're hard at work to try to address that critical issue. So these are, we're giving you a snapshot not only of our committee, but also a number of the other committees and the issues facing us. It's an exciting time. It's an exciting time here in Londonderry. We have the great privilege of having the Senate President. I think Senator Carson is only the second Senate President ever from Londonderry. If I remember my cursory examination of the legislative records. And you know, Sherm Packard, he's now in his third term as Speaker. He is only I believe the first time a Speaker has been from Londonderry.
Wow.
So we have the entire legislative leadership from Londonderry. I joke that we need to get a governor here now, and then we'll be all set, but I don't think Governor Ayotte wants to move.
No.
I think she's quite happy in Nashua. I believe she's a native of Nashua.
Yes.
But it's an exciting time with the new leadership in the Senate, the new leadership in the corner office, of course, new leadership in Washington, and in both houses of Congress also. So it's a lot going on. We've kicked off the new year. Everybody's been sworn in at this point at every level.
Lots of new faces.
Lots of new faces, and again, the legislature is moving full steam ahead.
Yes.
Any other bills we should talk about, Lisa, before we kind of wrap things up here?
Well, you know, I mean, some of them are just redos. A lot of them actually are from last year.
Right.
They didn't get through last year, so they came about again.
One of we mentioned commissions earlier, and there was actually a bill to establish a committee to study legislative protections and accommodations to individuals with long COVID. And you know, I don't have a lot of insight into long COVID. I hear it can be quite very serious, as was COVID for many people. And that is a bill we heard the other day, and we will be discussing soon, perhaps as early as this week, in terms of where our committee, you know, wants what recommendation we want to make to the full House. But obviously, COVID is gone, but certainly not forgotten. As much as we'd like to forget it, we can't, because it was had a devastating impact on our economy, on the health of many of our fellow citizens, and we need to, you know, the old expression, those who ignore the mistakes of the past or the lessons of the past are condemned to repeat them. So we don't want to do that. But that's another example of some of the issues we're dealing with, and we'll continue to deal with. Any other thoughts, Lisa?
Would everyone know what the new ratio in the House is? Like how we just went, there was a 2-person majority, and now we just have, so it's all, that's why there's so many new faces. So even on our own committee, we saw a huge turnover.
About half of our committee is brand new.
It's a little crazy.
About 1/3 of the House turns over every year.
Yeah.
The Senate has a few new faces. Of course, it's a much smaller body. It's
yeah, some state reps moved up into the Senate.
Right. Well, that tends to happen every term.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, Senator McHugh moved up this past term.
Yeah.
Senator Sullivan had been a member of the House in the past.
Yeah,
and she was not a sitting member of the House, but she's moved over to the Senate. Last term, we had Senators Pearl, Senator Abbas, and Senator Lang move over to the Senate from the House.
That was before my time.
Right.
So.
Well, no, that was this past election, wasn't it? No, I'm sorry.
I came in 2022.
Yeah. That's right. They moved over in 2022.
Yeah.
But yeah, many members of the Senate, probably most, have originally been members of the House, so they have a vast background and insight into the legislative process. But yeah, about 1/3, at least 1/3 of the House turns over every term, and you've got several new senators. Sometimes, because senators either lost or retired. Yeah. But with a lot of new blood in Concord, and we'll see how that works. Usually, it's a good thing. And I think it's going to be a good thing for Londonderry, a good thing for the state of New Hampshire. Yes. Here in Londonderry, we've got a pretty stable delegation to the State House. Senator Carson's been in multiple terms. The 7 state legislators, 7 state reps from Londonderry, we've all been in multiple terms. Some of us for 2 terms. I'm in my 3rd. Some of us have been there much longer. The Speaker himself he's in his 18th term. Wow. So we've got a lot of veteran leadership doing our best for you here in Londonderry. And I think our time is about up, Lisa, but again, thank you very much for joining me this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And maybe I can join you in Goffstown sometime and
yes,
return the favor.
We actually do have something similar there, so that'd be great.
But any final words?
No, I'm excited for this term. I wake up every day and I'm excited for what's coming. So I know it's busy, but I like being busy. I like the challenge. I think we have a great committee. I think we have a great crew. So we have a great crew in the House too. So I'm excited for what's to come.
It's going to be a productive session and a positive session. And again, thank you for the honor of being able to serve. And you take care, and we'll be back with another episode of Concord Conversations in the near future. Have a good day.
Bye, everyone.